to put up on the website. So this is being recorded officially as of now. Welcome to all those who could make it. It is wonderful to see some faces. Certainly, if you are not in a space where having your camera on is a viable option, or if you just prefer not to, that is always fine. I welcome everybody. We will just give it a few more moments as I just take stock of who we have logged in thus far. I see Stephen Mulick logged in. Is that Mallory or Steve? I'm just double checking to see who's actually there.
For now, Steve. It's just Steve. Hi.
Okay.
Eamon's here too.
And Eamon. Hey, Eamon. How you doing, buddy?
Say hi. Okay.
We all feel that way sometimes, Eamon. That's perfectly natural. Okay, I see Sheila logging on. Good. Lou and Bobby. Good. Jam, good. Good. Okay, Katie's logging on. So yeah, we'll just give it a few more moments as we await the rest of our board members who can make it this evening to log on. But once we have everyone, I will start our slideshow and call the meeting to order, and we will get rolling on the evening. Welcome, Katie. Welcome, Carlos. How's everyone doing this evening?
Awesome.
Good, good. Glad to see you. Good to have you. All right. All right, so I'm going to bring my share screen back up for everyone. This very, very official looking slideshow. Okay, we'll just give it a moment more. Okay. Okay, so I do know that we will have several board members who might be joining us slightly later than the official start time, just due to scheduling conflicts, but they have previously confirmed their attendance. Through a cursory scan of those currently logged in, as well as a review of the proxy votes that I carried out in advance of this meeting, I can confirm that we do in fact have a quorum this evening and can call this meeting to order. So as of 7:34 on April 27th at 7:34 p.m., I do hereby call to order the annual meeting of the Two Lake Club Incorporated, its members, its board of directors, and officers. So once more, thank you all for joining us this evening. To begin, we will just review the agenda. So we will have, as we just started with the verification of quorum, roll call of officers and directors. I can call myself, the president of the Two Lake Club, Trevor McGinn, present. To the vice president, Doug Emmerich. Are you present this evening?
Here, yes.
Thank you, Doug. To the treasurer, Larry Mango, are you present this evening?
Yes, present.
Michael Rudy, our secretary, are you present this evening?
Present.
All right. So those are our officers in hand. I believe I saw Sheila Tortorici logged on.
Yep,
Sheila?
present.
Present, wonderful. We will have, for the moment, we have Stephen sitting in for Mallory, but she will be joining us as soon as she is able to put her little one down. So given those numbers, as well as my presence as the president, as well as the voting proxies, again, counted, considering, thank you for the presence of Janet Anderson and Lou and Bobby. You guys put us over the top, thankfully, so we can carry out this evening's meeting in due course. So it is wonderful to see everyone. The next stage is the proof of notice of meeting, which I can, I'm hitting backward keys, proof of notice. The message that you see to the left was distributed physically and digitally to all members of the Two Lake Club on March 27th, 2023. The posting on the right has been posted at the entrance to our community since that same date. So that is a full month's notice, as in accordance with the bylaws, to inform the public of this evening's meeting. Okay. The reading and approval of last year's minutes. Thank you, Jan. It was yes, it was a very, very nice poster. So, Mike, do you have the minutes for our last meeting, which the last meeting I believe we would have taken minutes for would have been last year's annual meeting?
Yes, I do.
Okay, would you mind providing just a cursory rundown of those for us?
Yeah, they're a bit long. I won't
Yes.
do a line by line, but the meeting last year was held on April 28th, 22. Good to know we stay consistent, and it was also called to order at 7:34 last year. Proof of notice was read, and then we read and approved the minutes from the 21 annual meeting. Regarding communications or public comment, we had discussion around great work that was done by Larry Mango of revitalizing the entryway to the community, Mallory for the Easter egg hunt from last year, and again, Larry for all the help that he has been to Trevor as he was going into his president role. The officers and directors were proposed and elected with no objections. I'm not going to read those off, but they're very consistent with this year with a few additions. The officers are all the same this year as they were last year. Larry, as treasurer, gave a report on the 21 income and expenses and presented the 22 budget. And following a robust discussion, a motion was made and was passed with no objections that approved the budget as presented. Sheila, as chair of the beach committee, provided a report on work and repairs that were being planned out for the year. And Trevor, as chair of the social committee, talked about as we're coming really out of COVID, about the plans for barbecue and the egg hunt, et cetera, et cetera. There was various under unfinished and new business. Then there was talk about various committees that had been established, which were not yet populated at the time. That's the 5-year plan committee, the cap improvement committee, and the safety and sustainability committee. There was discussion which was agreed to combine the cap improvement and the 5-year plan committees into one committee, as there's a lot of overlap there. And regarding the safety and sustainability committee, there was discussion around continued work and looking to consolidate and reduce the amount of oil and trash trucks that come through the neighborhood, which would help with safety due to their high speeds, as well as from a sustainability perspective to cut down on just the number of deliveries through the neighborhood. And then that meeting was adjourned at 9:20 last year. So there's a top level summary of last year's meeting.
Thank you, Mike. Are there any corrections that any of the officers, directors, or members wish to make to last year's meeting minutes before we move forward? And if there are no corrections, then the minutes stand approved. Thank you, Mike. Okay, so receiving of communications and public comments. So at this time, if there are any members of the community that wish to say anything, speak to any matter, this would be that opportunity. I will say that I've received communication from a community member who has proposed an additional service that we could potentially fold into our bulk pickup this year. And I will save that for that time.
Actually, I usually find them because they always get hung up on the truck. The people that have ball retrievers are crazy.
Sorry, Sheila, do you have something you want to say? Francine, I'm seeing a couple different.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, hi. Thanks.
Yes, go ahead.
Is it okay?
Yes, of course.
Okay, thanks. Hi, guys. Thank you for everything you're doing. I had a question. Do we have associate members in our club?
So we do not, as proper, have associate members. Guests of a home, you know, if someone is a guest in your space, they do have the sort of permissions as a guest of your home to utilize the beach club. The rules do specifically ask that they are accompanied by a member of the household. That is something that, you know, is written into the rules. As with most of our rules, though, it is really incumbent, I think, on each household to be as considerate of our neighbors as possible, such that if you do need, you know, if you have somebody, a family member, perhaps watching a pet in your home and they wish to use the lake, that you just simply inform them. You know, if you go down, you can always just say, you're my so-and-so, and I doubt that there would be anybody in the community that would look twice at that. So does that answer your concern, Francie?
No, I think, thank you very much. No, I think I was asking more specifically, I think I had heard somewhere that read about associate members. And I had never heard that before, that the community had those, like people from not within the deeded community paying for it.
No,
Yeah,
no, this is a closed community in that regard.
Okay, no, thank you.
Yeah, of course. No, of course. Yeah, there is I believe a clause in the bylaws that says that is not something that can happen. So
yeah,
I think
I do not want that to be, but I just want to. Okay, thank you so much.
No, of course. Jan, go for it.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if this could be a source of confusion, but the Three Lakes Council does have associate members, and those are people who are who want to give the Three Lakes Council some funds, but they don't have lake rights and they're therefore not a voting member. So that might have been a source of confusion. You might have seen it there. But I agree. I've never heard of Two Lake Club having associate members.
Thank you, Janet. That probably was it. Thank you.
Is there anyone else at this time from the community that has any questions or any issues they would like to address before we move forward with officers' reports? Going once, going twice. All right. Then we will proceed with the reports of the officers. So, or rather the election, sorry, I got my own agenda backwards. The election of officers for this year, the slate proposed for 2023 is the same as 2022. Myself running for president, Douglas Emmerich running for vice president, Larry Mango for treasurer, and Michael Rudy for secretary. Is there any conversation, any questions, or any items that anyone would like to discuss before I propose, or rather, could I receive a proposed passage by one of our board members at this time?
Can you take it from just a general member?
Yeah, member as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
I would move that we adopt this officer slate with thanks to all of the officers for continuing to serve.
So we have a forwarded motion. Do I have a second?
A second.
Seconded.
Yeah, seconded.
All right, seconded by several. All in favor? If I could receive an aye. Thank you. All opposed? All right. Well, thank you very much. We look forward to serving you in the coming year. Moving forward to the election of the board of directors, we have 2 outgoing seats this year for Colleen Harris and Jonathan Samter. Jonathan will be staying on, but taking Colleen's place will be Carlos Fonseca. Carlos is here with us this evening. I have asked him if he wanted only to give a brief introduction of himself. Carlos, would you like to do so at this time?
Sure. Hi, Trevor. Hi, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity. It's a pleasure to meet you. Probably you have seen me in the neighborhood. We're relatively new. We moved last year in mid-July. We have been residents of Lewisboro for the last 12 years, and this is going to be our forever home. My kids are going to college soon, so we decided to move to this community. We love it. I love the lakes, and I mean, just the fact that you guys have managed to organize a community that is active and cares about each other speaks volumes about what we can achieve. I offer my service to you. At this point, I have been engaged in the Septic Committee as part of the Lake Clarity Committee, and my background is mostly marketing and data analytics. I work in finance. I have a son and a daughter that attend high school at this point, and my wife, Elena, is an accountant. It's a pleasure to meet you. I hope that I can serve you and serve the community.
Thank you very much, Carlos.
Welcome, Carlos.
Welcome, yes. So could I see a motion to approve the proposed slate of directors for the 2023 to 2026 term?
So moved.
Can
I'll
I hear a second? Wonderful. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Hey.
Okay, the ayes have it. So we are so elected for the 2023-2026 term of Jonathan Samter and Carlos Fonseca, who will serve a 3-year term on our board of directors. And at this time, we will turn to the reports of the officers. In my role as president, my predominant concern at this time would be the circumstance that we endured this past summer, where our well levels reached pretty critical lows that required and asked all of us to really cut back on our water usage. So first and foremost, I want to say thank you to everyone in the community for coming together. This was obviously a hardship that none of us necessarily anticipated, something that obviously changed our day-to-day lives and certainly changed the ways that we are able to maintain and view our homes. But I was really proud of the way that the community did pull together in that time, and we were able to reduce our usage during such an extended and overwhelming drought. Hopefully that will not be a concern moving forward, but it is something that I think we will be circling back to in new business this evening, just as a topic of conversation to, as a board and as a community, decide if that's something that we may be interested in sometime, maybe not this year, but in a future date, creating some more established rules for ourselves as a community. We do have different households that use different water sources. Some folks draw their water directly from the lakes for irrigation for their lawns, gardens, etc. Some folks have their own private wells, and then the vast majority of our community does utilize the Twin Lakes Water Corporation. They obviously have their own specific rules and guidelines that we, who are customers and are serviced by them, are obliged to follow. But if we decide as a community that we would choose to approach that as a collective, as opposed to each sort of using their own individual circumstance, that is a topic of discussion I'd be interested to hear opinions on later on in the meeting. Otherwise, I, as always, am just thrilled to be part of such a wonderful community. Every year that I'm sitting here, I'm going to thank Larry Mango for the absolute yeoman's work that he does. He does so much for our community, both physically and in terms of maintaining our finances and keeping us on point. So it really is something that cannot go without noting. So thank you, Larry, for all that you do. And thank you to all the board and the officers for all that you do. It does make me really proud to be part of a community where everyone contributes and everyone cares so deeply. So with that, I will step back. Doug, do you have anything that you'd like to say this evening?
Nothing from me right now, Trevor.
Okay, thank you very much. Larry, I'm gonna hopscotch you just because I think you'll take up more time and skip to Mike quickly. Mike, do you have any remarks you'd like to make this evening in your duty as secretary?
No, I'll just keep it brief, Trevor, that I'll, we'll be writing up the minutes and finalizing them and circulating a draft similar to the process from last year for review before we can finalize them, and would also just echo your comments regarding all the great work that Larry does, as well as everything that you do, Trevor, for the community. So thank you both.
All right. So with that, we will hand it off to the man of the hour, Larry Mango. Larry, would you like me to share my screen for the budget?
Yeah, Trevor, if you could, that would be great.
Yeah.
I think we should start with on the sheet that you have on the right-hand side is the balance sheet. If you're able to
Mhm.
share that, that'd be great. And I do, while everybody's thanking and recognizing members of the community, I think Sheila is due up to give a report from the beach committee. But I do think we should also recognize all the work that Sheila and Bart have been doing, especially down at the lake. There's been a lot of work there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and they've really stepped up. And we have 2 new docks that are that they spent a lot of time on getting them built. So take a look when the next time you are out walking your dog or walking around the neighborhood, take a look down at the beachfront, and you'll be able to see some of the work that's ongoing. And I'm sure she's going to fill us in a little bit later. But for right now, if you're able to see the screen, that's great. If the numbers are too small, I'm going to look at the upper right-hand side of the screen, which is basically the balance sheet. The top 4 or 5 rows are the assets, and the bottom 1 or 2 are the liabilities. But we're in a very good position. Right now, we have $17,000 in our savings account, $5,868 in our checking account. We have some undeposited receipts that were collected just in the last few weeks, which actually they might be deposited at this point. And then we have accounts receivable of $2,970. As far as accounts payable and our liabilities, at this point, it's really limited to our insurance, which is an annual payment, which is due at the end of May. So I have the invoice for that, and that's $1,437. And then we have a couple of members who have prepaid all or a part of their dues for this year, and that makes up the balance. And adding together our assets and liabilities, we are currently at $25,534. In past years, we've been trying to keep at least a year's worth of receipts kind of as a reserve. So with approximately 100 members and $150 in annual dues, we are at a good spot of where we need to be. And the reason why we have those dollars in reserve are really to cover either planned capital projects or to cover unanticipated expenses. And I think as far as capital projects go, I'm going to just give for instance, like in the last few years, we did replace the play set, which was a big expense, something that we couldn't have covered from our normal annual budget. And the other thing that we have a reserve for is just things that we can't anticipate. I mean, we do have a very good insurance policy, which covers our officers and directors. But if something were to happen where we needed to engage an attorney, or we had something that wasn't covered by our policy, that reserve would be something that would be very necessary. And by having the reserve, it enables us not to have to be concerned about having to make a special assessment if some sort of unanticipated cost comes up. So I feel like we are in a very good spot. The one thing that I would like to bring to everybody's attention is in years past, we have not opted to invest any of our funds and risk them by investing in any type of market or securities. But we did consider putting funds into CDs to earn a higher rate of interest in the past. And we opted not to do that because we didn't want to have those reserves tied up or be penalized if we should need them at some point in time. And the rate in the savings account and the rate that you can get from a CD were pretty comparable. That has now changed. A couple of things have now changed. Chase, which we've been doing our banking at for as long as I could remember, they have changed their policy. So now we're being charged a monthly fee for each of the accounts that we have. where in the past those fees were waived. So we have higher fees than we have had in the past. And in addition to that, the CDs, due to the current interest rate environment, CDs are paying about 3.5% for short-term 90-day CDs. So at this point, I did not want to make the move and close out our savings account and move that money into a short-term CD. But I think it's appropriate to move our $17,000 or so in savings and close the savings account and move it into a short-term CD so that we could be earning some interest on that at about 3.5%. And then that would cut our banking fees in half because we would only have the one checking account. So that's my plan. I don't know if that,
Are there penalties if we do have to draw from it?
there potentially are penalties, but typically the penalty is that you do not earn the interest that you would have earned otherwise. So I will confirm. I will confirm the terms. I don't want to tie up our money in a long-term CD, but I think it would be appropriate, given the current interest rate environment, that a 90-day CD would be an appropriate length of time to tie that up.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
Yep.
So that's our current balance at this point, including the accounts receivable. Then is $25,534, and that's my report.
Okay, thank you, Larry.
You're not going to talk about the budget half or the INE half, or is that later?
Is that a separate agenda item, Trevor? Or if not, I could go right into the budget.
I had assumed that it would just get covered at this time in reports of officers. Next would have been committees after this. So I figured we would run through it all now, but we would also be coming back to it. Yeah.
No, it was on the same page that Trevor had up on the screen. And it's what Trevor's going to flash at you. It summarizes what we had budgeted last year for 2023. The 2023 fiscal year, right? So it's the year ending now in 2023. The budget versus the actual. We're showing the variance there. And then the third column is the variance. There's some notes that I'll go over. And then the final column is the budget for 2024, which is in gray, and it has the box around that. So I think if we go down from the top of the budget down to the bottom might be the most efficient way to do this. The initiation fees, which is the first line of the budget, this is a $150 fee. It's a 1 year. The same as the annual dues is charged as an initiation fee. So our current annual dues are $150. So this is we assume that there would be 4 new members to the community last year that we charged initiation fees. And in fact, there were a number of homes that were sold and traded hands, and it was more than expected. So we have a positive variance there. For member dues, we did assume that not all of the dues would be collected. Member dues, we assumed 13,500 would be collected. In fact, we collected 15,300 this past year, and I believe it was 5 residents did not pay their 2023 dues at this point. And I believe, for the most part, it's an oversight. There were two residents who have long-term arrears. One is 5 years in arrears, and the other one is 6 years in arrears. But otherwise, we did better than anticipated. And I think we should try to shoot to do better than anticipated, or better than we have in the past next year. So you'll see that final column for the 2024 budget matches what we did this year. Collection income is collections that we're making from past years where residents did not pay their dues for whatever reason. And for the most part, when residents don't pay their dues, it's an oversight. But there are a couple who have not paid in a number of years, and it's definitely more than an oversight. There were a couple of residents that made prepayments. And then the other income here, we have a very generous board members and residents. And every year we send out our invoices, and we get residents that add additional contributions to the club. So that is this past year was even more generous than in prior years. So I would like to thank everybody who did make an additional contribution. So for next year, let's see, for next year's budget, I guess I was being a little bit aggressive. I put $1,250 there. But I say, why, let's go for it and see if we can raise some additional funds. And I know there's lots of things that different board members with different projects that different board members would like to achieve. So that's my recommendation there for the revenue side of it. On the expenses, let's see, you'll see the first line for expenses is bank fees. And you'll see we had only budgeted $20 because we really never got charged any significant fees. This past year, it was $432. So that was my mention when I talked about our balance sheet. That's what I was referring to. So for next year, I am recommending that we move that savings account into a short-term CD, and that should reduce those fees in half. Postage is more or less the same from year to year as is printing. The postage is for mailing out the annual dues. The printing is for printing the annual membership directory, which nobody thanked Jan and Lou for doing that, but they have been very good at keeping that updated. And you know, when homes trade, when homes sell, and we have new residents in the community, you know, it's not always so easy to figure out who the owner is. And Jan and Lou have been especially Jan has been very good at keeping that up. So thank you, Jan, for getting that printed, and for you and Lou for distributing that this past year. So that covers postage, printing, website. I had money in there last year for the budget. We actually pay about I think it's $260 or $275 or somewhere in that range every other year for web hosting. So we didn't have a web hosting charge this year, but we will see that charge next year. Let's see, repair and maintenance. I don't think there's anything really of note in repair maintenance, except for the fact that we did anticipate doing some work to remove some of the limbs on the trees down at the Lake Club Beach facility. We made the decision to spend a little bit more there than we had budgeted, and that was because there were some of the ash trees started dropping some limbs, and some of them are pretty close to one of the houses over there. So in any case, we had spent a little bit more money than anticipated there. You'll see that as note 7. For next year, I recommend that we keep money in the budget for tree service. It seems like every year or so there's a storm, and we have to do something or other to maintain the beach access. So I think everything else that's in repair maintenance is pretty much not anything that we need to talk about. Swim area maintenance is a service that we've been doing every year for the last 5 or 6 years. We have a local team that comes out and harvests the swim area by hand. And also puts down mats by the boat launch to keep the weeds down. And they're actually scheduled to do that on May 1st. They're going to come out and do the first maintenance of the season. Boat launch area maintenance. Those are various hardware that we had to purchase, and there is some additional work that needs to be done down at the beach facility. But you'll see for the proposed. In that final column there on the right-hand side of the screen, that really just trying to be consistent from year to year. And I think I had put in a little extra for swim area maintenance next year because we do have a lot of weed growth that seems to be impeding boat traffic, and I know we want to look at that, and we also want to look at doing some work on the beach, the area that's the actual sandy beach area. So there's a little bit of extra money in there this year for maintenance activities. Let's see, like to keep a contingency. We have a contingency of $1,000 that we did not use specifically for anything, but in effect, we did spend more than anticipated on the tree service line item. So that gives us a little bit of a cushion to keep that in there. As we go down further in the budget, insurance, we knew what it was last year. We know what it is this year. We already have the invoice for that. That just needs to be paid. Real estate taxes, thanks to some residents in the community, maybe 10 years ago, we're being taxed as an unimproved lot on the tax roll. So we have very low real estate taxes. Those have been paid up. The next thing of note in the budget, I'm suggesting we carry $2,000 next year for annual bulk trash pickup. But you'll see for last year, the charge is very low. We scheduled this bulk trash service pickup. We were very much willing to pay for it. Usually it's charged by the ton or by the pound, depending on how much trash they pick up. But despite mine and Trevor's repeated calls to the service that we used, they only billed us $271. So we tried to get them to take our money, but we're not interested. So we'll roll it over and put it into our reserves. Let's see. The next item is I actually think we should be spending more money on our picnic and our association events, and we've started to do more events thanks to I think it was Amanda and Mallory have really stepped up and pulled off some great events for the kids. I think we have a lot.
And Katie, yeah.
And Katie, yes. I mean, everybody's really pitched in and done a lot of work. And the neighbors who volunteered to be a stop on the Easter egg hunt, like everybody's really stepped up in the community, which is great to see. But I do suggest that we dedicate a little bit more money in the budget for next year, just because I do think we have a lot of new residents in the community, and it would be great to have activities and try to get them involved. So that's why you'll see a larger number in that column in the budget for next year. But that all said and done, this budget reflects consistent $150 annual fees, which is the same as we've had last year and the year before that, and the year before that, and the year before that. And even with that, we're still left with, after these expenses, with $1,800 of additional cash that we can next year that we could transfer over into our reserves or spend it for capital projects. So that's the budget that I propose for next year. But before, I think we could have a discussion on it at any time, but I do think it might be good to just look at the capital projects, because we had, I guess it was last year, I think it was Greg Nickel was really pushing and suggested that we come up with a separate capital plan, a 5-year capital plan for the lake and for the beachfront and the lake club area. And what we opted to do was to put those improvements, those capital projects, into a separate budget. And that budget, we would use our reserves and plan for these improvements. And you can see the categories here are pretty general. We had planned to spend $3,750 this year, mainly to improvement to docks. And we did do that work, or Sheila and Bart really did that work. So thank you again. But we did do most of that work, and those docks need to be launched and finished. But we have a replacement dock that was done this past year. We did budget money for, put down some number 4 gravel on the parking area and the driveway at the beach club, and we did not do that this past year. And then we had also budgeted some money for some new furniture or picnic tables as needed. So there are things that we planned to do, but we just didn't. We didn't do it because there's only so much time in a day. And I really think, the beach committee is probably the most important committee I think Sheila and Colleen are doing a great job on the beach committee, but I do think we should consider if anybody in the community is interested in doing some work down there and helping us coordinate some new projects, it would be greatly appreciated. And I think we can get a lot more done and really make it a real jewel. It's already a jewel, but I think it could make it even better than it is. But anyway, this shows what we spent last year and then the plan going forward. And it's just, the docks that were built by, again, by Sheila and Bart and some other volunteers, probably $40,000 project. And we spent a couple of $1,000s on it. So it's, we could spend a lot of money. We could spend $10,000 on a new boat rack, or we could spend $2,000 and some volunteers and some time, and it's not really that complicated. But our reserves will go really fast if we're going to hire professionals to do this work. So I want everybody to keep that in mind and volunteer when you can. But this is the capital plan for the next 5 years. It's a draft. It's just some numbers on paper, the kind of a placeholder for some different projects that seem like they need to be done at some point. And we can go into this line by line, but I don't know that it's necessary at this point unless any of the members on the call want to discuss it. So
Larry, I just wanted to ask, are we still going to fix up those picnic tables down at the beach? Because you sit on them and it's...
Yeah, so there's one picnic table that is now a lounge or a chaise on the beach. So that one has been transformed, but the other ones, you're right, they do need repairs. So they're, the picnic tables, it's very basic. It's a few pieces of wood screwed together, and over time the screws come out or they get loose and they just need to be tightened up. So that's a thing that it's somebody with a screw gun and some basic knowledge of how things go together needs to spend a few hours doing. And better than one person, it would be 2 or 3 people. So we just need a team to do it and some time to do it. And if we can't find the time, we need to find somebody that we can pay to do it.
I mean, if it's just screwing it together, I could do that. I have many a drill.
So
I might just need someone to help me flip the table.
Yes, I just want to ask Trevor, is there a beach committee report or is...
Yeah, we will be, after this concludes, we'll be turning things over to Sheila.
Okay, so yes, I think like all of these things have to do with the beach area. So unless Sheila wants to jump in here, I think we could definitely talk about that. But Mallory, every year we try to schedule at least one weekend. Usually it's multiple weekends, but at least one weekend where we invite the community to come down and to do, work on multiple projects. But that's one of the things that the picnic tables is something that we want to tackle on that beach cleanup day, which we usually do in May. So it would be in the next few weeks.
Larry, one question regarding the 2 accounts that you mentioned that are 4 years and 5 years in arrears. Is there any way to collect, or is there any way, at least if the house is sold, that we get the past due monies as a condition to the sale?
Yes, absolutely. So the bylaws and the homeowners association, it's a deeded homeowners association. So when a house is sold at an arm's length transaction, at least, the attorneys on the buyer side would typically look at the deed, They would look at the town records and they would see that this is recorded. And Trevor or I normally get calls from those attorneys asking if the homeowner is paid up to date. So ultimately, we will get paid when a house sells. I suppose if a house sells and it's not an arm's length transaction and it's, it's something within the family or a friend is selling it and they're not using an attorney, it might get missed. But that doesn't seem to happen too often. So we would, on a sale, at some point, we're going to get paid the late fees and any past due amounts. The other thing that we could do is we could file a lien, and that was done in the past, and it was not a good experience for the treasurer at the time, who had to deal with the homeowners who had a lien put on their house. So eventually we get our money is the bottom line. Because it's a deeded homeowners association.
And I would also just like to add that were we to implement a lien, that actually is just adding sort of fuel to the fire for the homeowner, because we would then also likely pass on whatever legal fees attendant to the filing of that. So we're actually just building up on the amount that they owe. So there's already some acrimony there. There's a reason why they haven't paid for this long. I know Larry has been very diligent in reaching out to those homeowners. So this, I think that would only sort of further that divide. And just,
friendly resolution is better for sure. Yes.
Yeah. So I think Larry is on top of it, but yeah, we'll just keep plugging away at those households and hoping. We were able to get one of the larger outstanding debts taken care of last year. So maybe we can make it one a year. We can tackle one of the big fish a year and start working our way back that way. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to speak to specifically as regards the report of the treasurer?
So I'm just going to say that Larry skipped over the sign, and I know Trevor, I think you had something to do with buying it, and Larry had a lot to do with putting it in. So I just want to say thank you to both of you. It is it makes the whole area look more cared for to have a polished sign like that at the top. So thanks to both of you.
Thank you.
My pleasure for computer work. Larry put the sweat equity in. So again, big thanks there.
Yeah, but
anything else?
But Trevor, it is, it does, just for everybody, it does take time. I know like Trevor went back and forth with the sign manufacturer, and like, even though it's like, we're hiring somebody else to make a sign and then all we have to do is put it in. Well, it takes a lot of time to try to coordinate that and get what's the sign gonna say? What font are we gonna use? What color is it gonna be? I mean, all of that, it just takes a lot of time to coordinate it and put it together. So Trevor, thank you for doing that. And it's just another example. Like there's a lot of little things that need to be done, and it just takes time. And we're a small community. Luckily, we're a very, very active community, and everybody talks to one another. And I'm talking to all of you now that are on the call who aren't already on the board of directors, and we can always use some help.
Hear, hear. Okay, so if there are no further comments regarding the report of the treasurer.
Trevor, hi, it's Doug. Just one quick thing on the bank fees. Doesn't Chase waive the monthly fee if there's a certain amount of money in the account?
They do. For personal accounts, it's a pretty large balance you need to maintain. But for the homeowners association, they used to waive it just as a homeowners association, knowing that we had that money in savings. But they changed their policies, and I tried to get them to go against their policies and waive it for us, but they wouldn't do it.
Oh, okay, yeah, because I just thought they do that for business accounts. But I guess they wouldn't do this for this particular account.
Okay, so any further comment, question, or remark to make regarding Larry's report on the proposed 2023 budget? or the 2022 actuals? Okay, could I have a motion to approve the 2023 budget as proposed by Larry?
So
moved.
And a
I'll
second?
second. I'll second.
Wonderful. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much, Larry. Our 2023 budget stands approved. So we will move at this time to the reports of committees, and leading us off will be Sheila Tortorici. Or Sheila, would you like to lead us off with what we've got going on down at the beach this year?
Sure. Thanks, Trevor. Yeah, and it's Smith now. That's why. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I was like, oh God, in the back of my brain, I'm like, nope, I did that wrong.
Oh, that's okay. It still shows that way on the website too. So, okay, from the beach committee standpoint, you've heard about the dock work that's been underway. So we've actually kind of already had quite a few beach meetings earlier this year. To kind of prep some of that docks to replace the finger dock primarily. We know we've got work to do on the smaller launch dock. That will probably be waiting till later in the season. Again, as Larry indicated, time is a bit of a challenge, and it does take a fair amount of time to rebuild those docks. Also, a couple of things coming up for this weekend. Actually, on Sunday, we're planning on launching floats. I realize it's supposed to rain, but it's actually the only weekend that Bart and I are available between now and Memorial Day. So we want to take advantage just because we've got the hitch and the wherewithal and the knowledge of how to do those float launches. So we're going to do that Sunday morning at 10. I put that out on our Facebook page last night or the night before. So anyone interested in applying or supporting with some manpower to help make that happen. I actually have to stain one of those docks, which hopefully, if it doesn't rain tomorrow, I was going to do it today, but we had quite a bit more rain than I thought. Get that one smaller float stained. We're going to pressure wash the larger white float, the 8x8 that goes in the middle of the lake. And then the aluminum float should also get launched. We're not ready to launch the new finger dock area yet. We've got to put some pilings in there to support that. And we're going to try and rearrange the smaller float, the smaller dock, so that at least it's straight out and supported and easy for people to use. Right now, it's kind of unusable. The winter really took that one down to the end. As far as the picnic tables, I never sit at them, so I don't know what they're doing, Mallory, so apologies, but I literally never sit at the picnic tables. So I didn't know they were doing something funky. But if you want to come down on Sunday, we'll have some people down there and we can kind of help tighten those up. So that's, we have to try and figure out, I'm not sure when we're going to do beach cleanup, a larger beach cleanup, since I'm not going to be available. The only weekend we're actually home is Mother's Day weekend. Most people don't like to work that weekend, but that's Saturday and then this Sunday, the 30th. So, again, we've already kind of done a few beach days, but we haven't done the official cleanup date. So I might need somebody else to help run some of the other cleanup tasks after we get the float launch, or if people are available Sunday, that's kind of my preferred day. I intend to spend the day down there doing at least things that need to be done. So that would be this Sunday, the 30th, which is a little bit earlier than we normally do, but the weather's been so odd this year. And I know there's been a lot of families down at the beach already, because most of you I see down there as we've been working on the docks. So would like to try and get things available. I've seen kids swimming already. So I know the community's ready to do all that. So again, this Sunday, the 30th, we'll be down there. A formal beach cleanup day after that date. Again, I'd be dependent on someone else to kind of really do that. Potentially that Saturday, the 14th, I can do probably a half day, but I think actually my kids might come home that weekend, so I'm not sure. So that's kind of what we're looking at in terms of beach cleanup. So I don't know what people's schedules look like, but it's a little bit tight. I can tell you a couple of things we want to do. I've got to resand and stain the 2 little side benches at the sandbox. That'll probably get to during the week. I'd like to do something to make that fire pit area look a little neater. So that's one of the things we'd like to try and get done. So that Larry and I have been tossing around some ideas on that, but not really liking the way it looks with the rocks and then the ashes and then the standing pit in the middle. So we're thinking about widening that out, maybe putting the standing pit on gravel and moving the rocks around to make it a little more attractive in terms of the fire pit space. So anyone willing to think about that wants to come down on Sunday and talk about what we might want to do with that. And
Do
again,
you have a pick on you?
say that again. I missed the question. I'm sorry.
I think that might have been accidental.
Oh, okay. All right. So anyway, so those are a couple of the major things. And then annually, if we don't do a larger beach cleanup annually, we are supposed to go reset, kind of rake out that mulch in the play area. So all of that playground mulch should be raked through, kind of lifted and organized a little bit. So it's not so densely packed, and that's more of a safety and a mulch maintenance thing that we're required to do in the play area. That does take a number of hours to do, which I think people don't realize, but Paul Lyons has been a big contributor to that in the past, but it's probably 4 or 5 hours just to get that mulch raked out. So there's a few projects like that that we should try and get to before Memorial Day. And then we'll probably try and do something on either a monthly basis over the summer where we'll tackle individual projects. So that's kind of where we are in terms of the beach. Any questions or other major items? And apologies, Mallory, for not realizing the picnic tables were wonky. Any other major items that anybody's noticed down there that need to be addressed in terms of physical and safety and things for people?
I see Katie Watkins has her hand up. Go ahead, Katie.
Hi. I guess not a major issue, but I noticed we're down to only about 5 chairs down there. And I know something really nice, especially when I'm lugging my 2 kids down, is that I don't have to also lug down a beach chair for myself. But we're down to 5, which I know pretty soon it'll be down to like 2 or 3 with the wear and tear. So I was curious if there was a plan for that.
So that was one of the things Larry actually mentioned earlier, that we had some money in the budget to do furnishings down at the beach. So we are looking at that. I think, Katie, it might have been you that mentioned that we want to maintain some plastic chairs, so that specifically kind of parents who are with younger children can bring a chair into the water where you can sort of stay a little bit cool. So we were looking into some Adirondack chairs. Those would be a little bit heavier to move, but to take into account the fact that, hey, it's easier if we can bring chairs closer to our children. I think we would also look into a couple of plastic chairs. So we haven't done that yet. If you happen upon or to see chairs or furnishings that you guys think would work as you're out in various locations, not a fan of dark brown chairs because I think they get too hot personally. And I don't know if upright chairs work better than the Adirondack style. In terms of people sitting in the water. So for the beachfront, we look at Adirondack style. But in terms of things that people parents particularly might want to bring into the water, do you guys have a preference to an upright chair versus an Adirondack?
Doesn't really matter to me. I think we've had a combination of those in the past, and either or is fine, just somewhere that you can put your butt on.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we'll look into that. Larry, I think that's still carried in the budget this year, right? If I recall what we just looked at.
Yeah, there's definitely money in that capital projects budget for FF&E. So absolutely,
Okay.
yep.
Yep. Yeah. So we will address that, and I'll try and get that done before Memorial Day then, specifically.
And to
But-
anybody who should stumble across a deal that can't be believed, please always do send it our way. You can always email the main club Gmail account, twolateclubinc@gmail. And I will make sure that that gets passed around for all eyes to see, so that we can take advantage of good savings if they can be found.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Trevor. Yeah, that's super important. If we, something of nice quality. The plastic over years, it just, as it's out in the sun and then out in the winter, it gets very brittle, which is why we're down so low on chairs now.
And hand in hand, if we are going to be investing in new chairs like that, I think maybe looking into purchasing a replacement for that storage container we have, such that we have a place that we can securely store that stuff to make sure it lasts longer, might be worth looking into as well.
Okay, great. Yeah, we'll take a look at that too. Thanks, Trevor.
Mallory,
Anything
go
else?
ahead.
Yeah.
2 questions. One, sorry, 3 things. I don't think I'll be able to be there on Sunday, but I will go down and look at the bench at some point when it is not raining to see. I don't know if we will need more wood to fix it or not. But 2, the questions are, Larry, did you ever thread the rope for the swim area? Is that still something that needs to be done? And then my other question is, if Trevor, maybe you could talk about the wasp remediation, because they're going into the holes underneath the twisty slide. There's 2 holes on the bottom of the plastic, and there's a nest up in there.
So Larry, do you want to address the lane line first?
Yeah, I think last year I just gave up at some point. But there's new rope down there, and there's a whole lot of floats, but just like the chairs, the floats get brittle and crack over time. And it just needs to, when we float the docks this weekend on Sunday, why don't I make a point? I'll be down there, and why don't I make a point, Sheila, to take a look at the lines and the floats that we have available for, and just make sure that we have enough.
Yeah, because I don't know how many of the balls we have down there.
Yeah,
and
but Mallory, we
yeah.
can do that this year for sure.
Okay. Yeah, it helps keep boats out of the swim area too when we have the lines up.
Absolutely. And then 2, remediation for the wasps. So I hung up a couple traps just in a really more of a prayer more than anything, in hopes that would be effective. I caught every bug except for the ones that I was trying to catch, it appeared. So more aggressive measures will need to be taken. Honestly, the best way to do it, if we're going to do it ourselves, is for somebody to go down after the sun is down and to spray into those nooks and crannies. My fear is that in addition to that interior portion of that tube slide, where they do have openings and they can fly in and out of, that there's not going to be a good way for a non-professional, shall we say, to properly fumigate that interior space and not be risking themselves in a way that is not comfortable. And then similar, who's
Trevor, I'm sorry,
yeah.
Trevor, Sheila. Is there a reason we don't want to hire somebody to do that? I'm sorry,
that's exactly where I'm heading. Is that I think we've spent that much money on this play structure specifically so that our families can go down there and take advantage of it. So to be looking at a second season in a row of fighting these things, I would like to offer that I can just start soliciting some quotes from a couple different exterminators, and we'll hire a professional to come in with the hazmat suit and just knock that out.
Yeah, and I can't remember who I used at the house for Yellow Jackets, but they did a good job. I'll send you over their name. You can I'll try and email you, Trevor, and send you the name of the exterminator we used, but they were good. They were there when they said they would be, and they offer a a 1-year or 2-year guarantee with no reinfestation in the areas they treat too. So
I love a guarantee. So that, yes, please. do
yeah,
send-
I'll try.
do
I'll
that.
send you there. And I don't know if that applies to a place set in a in a
Right.
beach area, but
Sure.
it applied to a house. So
All right. Well, that would be perfect. That'd be great. So yeah, so that's one thing on that is exactly, I want to just get that nipped, and then we'll have our play set and area for the season. Any other comments or questions for Sheila or the beach committee? Okay, well, thank you very much, Sheila. Moving on to events for this year, our community has seen a great increase in events in the past year, and as noted previously, that is in great part we owe a debt to Mallory, to Katie, and to Amanda Sarah as well, who can't be with us this evening. Their households have really taken leading our community and having fun events for the kids. They've taken that by the horns, and it has been so much fun to hear and see the pictures. It's been really wonderful and really heartwarming, and is really something that I'm so thrilled with. This year, we definitely want to keep that ball rolling. And so I will certainly continue to lean on those volunteers when they're willing. But anything new that folks want to volunteer, again, if you have an idea, always just send a note my way. My phone is in the directory. My email is in the directory. The Too Late Club email will get to me. If you have something that you're interested in potentially doing, let us know. We would love to host it. I'd also like to thank Larry and Greg Nickel, who hosted Fire and Ice throughout the season, through the spring, summer, and fall, including up into the late fall. We even had an election night eclipse edition with Larry hosting down at the beach. So these are all such wonderful events that are all just a part of what make our community so special. And so I thank all of you guys for your efforts, for your commitment, and your desire to put these events up on their feet, because that's really what it takes, is somebody with the passion and the drive, and you guys have done an amazing job. So from my position, thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to another year where we can keep building on that success that we've had in this past year. The only other main events that we have to discuss this evening would be the July 4th picnic. So we will expand that a little bit, as we all saw from Larry's budget. We are growing our events budget, so that will go to all of those holiday events that we've been hosting. They will be each receiving, the additional bump commensurately. But July 4th is really our big event of the year. This year, the 4th falls on a Tuesday, which is a bit wonky. I don't know specifically whether Monday will be considered a bank holiday, if folks will have off. But either way, I think as a matter of course, then we would just hold our picnic on that day, on that Tuesday. Certainly, if folks have to be back to work on Monday, they'll be around. But either way, that should have folks at the very least coming back from weekends away and maybe able to drop in later in the afternoon or evening to check out the barbecue and fireworks that tends to show up. So if anybody has any questions or concerns about the 4th, any concerns with the date, anything at all? Any suggestions either, anything that they'd be maybe interested in seeing that we haven't done in years past? Typically it is even and odds, houses bring a side or a dessert, and the club provides beverages and non-alcoholic beverages, and entrees, burgers, hot dogs, etc. Okay, then we will look to keep things the same this year on Tuesday the 4th. The other item that I would like to schedule at this time would be our bulk pickup service for this year. As Larry noted, that has been a great savings to us in the last couple of years. Last year, again, despite our multiple efforts to try and pay them more, they did just bill us for the sending of an additional truck. That's really all they charged for, despite the fact that we do have an agreement that rates per tonnage. So whether or not that will happen again, we'll have to see. Win Waste Management is the company that we have been using for this service. They took over for City Carting about 2 years ago. So if they'll hold the agreement that we have held in previous years, my instinct would be to continue with them, certainly if they're going to continue giving us an even better deal than agreed upon. But if for any reason that number should change, I do know that we have local vendors as well, such as AMG or MVP, that could potentially provide us with a better savings if we were to go with a more local company. But assuming that everything is the same, I think we would maintain with Win at this time. The question would just be date. Typically, we have held our bulk pickup during June in the first or second week of the month. We have typically, I believe the dates they usually have available for this are Wednesdays, and if memory serves, Sundays. No, that doesn't. If it was a Sunday, I think we would have taken a Sunday. So I believe it is weekdays only, but we have typically held our bulk pickup on a Wednesday. So Wednesdays available in June are the 7th, 14th, 21st, and 28th. They made it easy for us in that month and keeping track. Typically, we've done it the first or second week of the month. Does anyone have a noted preference for date?
I'd just say earlier the better. If they could do the 14th.
Well, in that case, I'll shoot for the 7th, and we'll see if we can get.
Yeah,
We'll get
7th, that'd be great.
So that's what I will target is the 7th with a potential fallback of the 14th. But we should be early enough in booking at this point that we should pretty much have our pick of the litter. The only additional item to follow that would be that Mark Wachtell, one of our residents, did propose potentially folding in this year, not as an annual service, but a once every, however many years, to also do a bulk paint pickup. Paint, household paint is explicitly precluded from inclusion in our bulk pickup. And so I know in my boiler room, I have many third gallons and quarter gallons and of dried paint that are just sitting there because the town only has specific days that they can be brought to the dump to be disposed of. So the proposal that Mark was making was that potentially we could have a day where we did enlist somebody like an AMG, one of the more local companies, to come provide a truck, and folks could either bring their paint or have the truck run the neighborhood, and then for a fee they would then deliver that to the town dump at a prescribed date that is permissible by the town. I also have found Westchester County does in fact have a paint recycling program, but their rules are sort of they're very complicated, shall we say. So in order to procure a truck to pick up from our neighborhood from them would require a guarantee of 100 gallons in terms of can of paint. So each gallon, we're talking 100 cans essentially of paint to guarantee a pickup. Otherwise, they would be charging us.
Yeah, and Trevor, one of the things for people, and I don't know that if we could do this as a two-leg club or not, and it does require driving to Ridgefield and crossing a state line. But Ridgefield does have a non-resident program for their dump, and at the Ridgefield dump so you pay for the non-resident. I think it's like $40 for an annual. And Bart and I use it all the time. It's actually when we do a lot of the disposal from the lake stuff. But certain things you can dispose of for free. Paint happens to be one of them. So you pay an annual charge for a non-resident tag of $40, and you can bring up to 10 gallons of paint at a trip. And drop it off at no charge at the Ridgefield town recycling. It's their town recycling center. So it's a little bit more expensive than our town center is. But they do have some nice advantages, and that happens to be one of them. So if people in the community are interested in that, you just go to the town hall in Ridgefield and you can get a non-resident permit, and then at no charge, you can dump cardboard, you can dump plastics, you can dump paint, you can dump, they have a recycling bin for clothes. You can pick up free mulch if you like. I mean, so there's just in general for community information, that non-resident permit at Ridgefield is worth looking into if you tend to accumulate things like that.
That's very good info to have, and I will actually make sure that that gets added to the website.
Yeah,
as a
I would
resource
just,
that
yeah,
folks know about.
yeah. And it's just a nice resource to know about. We use it a lot. But, you know, specifically paint, like you said, that happens to be one of the things that over time we've just accumulated a tremendous amount of, but it's a nice resource for the community. And we do take advantage when we dump large stuff from the lakefront. We actually, I mean, that you pay for when you drop off there by the weight, by the pound or 100 pounds or whatever the minimum is. But there's definitely a nice setup over there for people in the community that might be interested in taking advantage of that, and not a significant cost.
Right.
So,
No, that's
just a FYI.
fantastic. Yeah. So that is certainly good to know. And I think maybe that becomes the moving forward expectation as households are able to fend for themselves. But I just open that up to the community, to any feedback as to whether there would be interest in maybe a one-time service of that sort.
Westchester County last weekend had a pickup over at FDR Park. And there were hundreds and hundreds of people there. And it's very complicated. They go through everything and look carefully as to what you're dropping off, and everything gets put in certain containers. And the county also, you can go to Valhalla, you can call them, and you can go there for free and bring down whatever it is you have, electronics, tires, paint, all of that. But you have to call them ahead of time, and they'll tell you when to do it and all of that. So, and that's free.
I don't think Valhalla is free for Lewisboro. I don't think there were some counties up here that didn't pay into that, so I don't know if it's free for us.
Well, I don't know of. I just it was advertised as being free on the radio, but anyways, I dropped everything off at the county at FDR Park last weekend. It took 2 hours in line, but it was they didn't charge anybody anything.
Yeah, and they do have, and they have those recycling days every so often. At least a couple times a year. And I did tell Mark about them, about that before this last update. It's really something I guess we could do a better job of communicating about for people who have, especially, you know, pesticides, fertilizers they don't want to use, any kind of toxic chemicals. I'm actually surprised that you can find a company that's willing to take paint as garbage, because I think they want to keep it separate from a lot of their other stuff. But maybe if it's dried, I don't know. But anyway, I echo the thing about the material thing over at FDR.
I think in light of the company not willing to take our money last year and having the low charges that were rolled over into reserves from the bulk pickup last year, that I'd like the idea of doing it as a one-off this year.
And yes, we would set it to line up with either a recycling day where the town has a scheduled deposit sort of set up such that we can essentially have more or less a dump truck, kind of a garden style. We've all seen the lawn truck flatbed dump truck size, just to collect cans here in the neighborhood so that folks don't have to be lugging this here and there and avoiding the 2 hours in line. That would be the end goal, I think, for us. So if there is general consensus that would be something worth looking into, I can certainly run the due diligence on that and see if that's feasible.
I think it would be worth sending out a survey, like maybe just a quick little Google form to ask if people actually have paint that they would want to do that with, because if it's only like a handful of households, it's not worth doing.
I think that's fair. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and easy enough to put together. So with that in mind, that's what we'll do. We will, as I am lining up the bulk pickup, I'll also put together a quick survey to send out to the community, see if how folks feel about it, and we can go from there.
Okay, how about old fluorescent light bulbs? You're not supposed to put them out in the normal stuff, and I don't know what to do with them.
So to that end, I think basically what we'll have to look at it is instead of just, I think, classifying paint, then we'll have to, I think, consider it sort of those general hazards. And we'll look into what a company would be expecting from us in terms of compensation to remove those types of items. Because you're absolutely right. Paint is certainly the thing that for me comes to mind, but absolutely you're right. There are plenty of other things that we're not able to include in those bulk pickups or our regular pickups. So yeah, I will look for all those hazards. Yeah, go ahead, Sheila.
Trevor, I wonder if on the website, if we maybe as you're investigating things or as people discover things, maybe we could post a area on the, like kind of a community forum area on our website for disposal, kind of hints on where people or how they would dispose of paint, of fluorescent light bulbs, even batteries. So, lithium batteries you can take to, you're not supposed to throw them in the trash, but Home Depot takes them, maybe we could kind of set up a little assist area on the site for people to look things up like that, because I think it would be helpful, because most people don't know how to get rid of stuff, and I'm sure stuff ends up in the trash that never should be.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think Home Depot does take fluorescent tubes too.
I think they do as well. That's what it was, the fluorescent question that made me think about that. I'm not sure.
But yeah, I think in general, collecting resources for those types of disposals, places to dump, places to recycle, I think that makes sense to add to our neighborhood links section of the website. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so anything I come up with, I'll just, I guess anyone who knows about places where you can get rid of things, maybe Trevor, if you don't mind, maybe we could just email.
Yeah, of course.
Again, email back to you because I know you've been doing the website maintenance and it looks fantastic, by the way.
Thanks. Yeah,
I meant to mention that earlier. I was like,
so the town recycling center that's open Saturday morning, I believe, takes this AA, AAA, C and D batteries. At least I'm not sure if they take anything larger.
Okay, so maybe we can. Yeah, I think it would be helpful if we got. Yeah, I don't think they take like the bigger rechargeable batteries, but.
And just in case folks didn't see it in the chat, Mallory did include there that if anyone is looking to get rid of a car seat, Target is having a trade-in event through the 29th of this month. So 2 days, you get on it. If you're trying to get rid of a car seat, the time is now. So thank you everyone for your input on this. Thank you everyone for your feedback. We will definitely look to expand on our website's informational side in terms of providing resources for the disposal and recycling of potentially hazardous materials, difficult materials, and we'll also look into whether there's a desire in the community for a one-time disposal for these types of items to be provided by the club. The last thing for me from community events is actually Sheila really just did a wonderful job of introducing it. It's on our website now. When you visit, you will see all of our links across the top, but when you hover over events, you will see schedule, register, etc. Register is how you get here. This is how you can sign up for community emails and our village directory if you're not already receiving email communications and wish to. But there's also a new layer here called schedule an event. And so right here, what we have is just a simple registration form. There's no fees, no attendant issues of that regard. But you just fill this out with your email, name, your home address, a contact number, and then the information, just simply number of guests, date, time, so that if you are planning to host an event down at our beachfront picnic area, we can add it to our events calendar on the website such that it can really serve as a resource for our community members to know what's happening down there. Certainly, if you live further out on Twin Lakes Road or if you live on Oskalita, it could be very frustrating if you gathered up all your swim gear, sunblocked up, and you get down there and there's a children's birthday party and you were just hoping to relax, or what have you, or there's a barbecue and folks are enjoying some beverages and you were hoping to play with your kids. This just is designed to give everybody in the community a little bit of an extra heads up if there's something taking place down there, And we ask folks to sign up for this and use this form if you're going to have an event that's going to be larger than say 15 people. Something that is going to obviously impact potentially another's enjoyment of that space down there. So this is not, there's no fee attendant to it. There's nothing other than the request that you register so that we can add it to the calendar so folks are aware of what's happening down at the beach, so they don't lug everything down just to be potentially disappointed. Not that you wouldn't be welcoming, not that you wouldn't be inviting, but that could happen.
Trevor, can I ask a quick question? Because I used the form. So I've been on the site, but I couldn't find anywhere where I described what my event was. And what I was trying to do was schedule the event of the float launch on the 30th.
Yes.
But because I either missed it on the form.
No,
which could
you
be.
did not. I also noticed that. And so this is very much still in beta. I'd like to say it's on its feet.
But I loved it. And I did love it. But if you, could we just put a description of event? So children's birthday party or because I didn't put number of guests. I was hoping for 6. I was optimistically 6 guests will show up. But that if we could add a description to that.
Absolutely. Because I saw it and I sent you an email. I was like, are you just testing whether this works or are you actually hosting?
Trying to really host I was trying to host an event.
So yes, so absolutely. I will add that section just for a description of event so that way we have an idea of what is taking place so that folks, when I add it to the calendar, I don't have to reach out explicitly.
Right, but I did love, I liked having the form there. I thought it was very helpful. Thank you again for that. I don't spend a lot of time on the website, but I was there this week and I was like, oh, wow, this is nice.
Hey, Trevor, a couple of ideas.
Yes, please, Carlos.
Talking about mulch, I have seen that in some communities, there is a day where the community rents a mulching machine. There's a lot of branches that come from all of our gardens, and to dispose them as a group. Maybe it's an economical way. You don't have to rent a mulcher for the day as an individual home, but there is a day where everybody takes their branches. Those are mulch and people can use the mulch. That could be one idea. And the other one that is a nice thing in other neighborhoods, to have a community library. One of these boxes that they put on the streets and people just have libraries, CDs, etc. to share, right? Instead of putting them on the trash.
Yeah, I love that idea. I think community library would be delightful, a great addition. And we could put it right at the top of the beach there. For folks to sort of swing
and I don't know
by
if the mulching thing is something that people will be interested. I don't know.
Well, we'll look into it. We'll see what it looks like. We'll see what's available to us, what that cost would be, because you're absolutely right. We have no shortage of limbs down, branches and general refuse falling from above. So if we can turn that around and make it into something useful, then I think that would be nice.
Yes, and a couple of plugins. I mean, there is one, I think that you have seen some posters about a 3-lake challenge, which is a leisure, paddle of the challenge. This is Jonathan Peterson from Lake Wacabuc, and it's an open invite for everybody to just paddle the lakes and to raise the awareness about how important it is to keep the water clean and take care of the lakes, right? And connected to that, as I said, I'm volunteering along with Janet for the septic committee. And it's a very simple idea, which is making sure that our community and each of the households pumps the septics often enough to keep our water clean. So, I mean, we're going to be following up, but in general, since there is a quorum here, just to let you know that we have taken the time to go through the county records and understand how often each of the households pumps. Those records are imperfect because those records come from the pumping companies that send them to the town. And there is a lag time to know. But at this point, we know that around the whole 3-lake community, probably 30% of the households have not pumped their septics in the last 5 years. So, well, that's concerning, right? And that's concerning as a community. So we would love the help of everybody on this call and your neighbors if you can pass the notice that it's important to pump. Janet, you're probably in better position to talk about this, but I just wanted to make sure that we mentioned this during this call.
That was slated for new business, Carlos, but we can absolutely get on it now. So Jen, go ahead. Anything you want to add to that?
Yes, so I think there is some work being done to look at, let me back up a little bit. A year ago, we had a big study funded by the state and New York City to look at the septic impacts around Lake Wacabuc. So it didn't explicitly cover our areas, but because we have the same kind of soils and the same kind of age of the houses, you know, it's pretty clear that septics can really affect the conditions of the lakes. And this, we might not have needed this study to say it, but the study really did say, you know, a lot of the houses are too close to bedrock, too close to water, too in poor soils that really don't do well. So the easiest thing that we can do is to pump out. And when they pump out, they will, the pumping company will look at like the baffles and to make sure that things are okay. The last time, no, 2 times ago when I had mine pumped, they said, it looks like this baffle needs replacing. It was $75, great, you know, to keep the fields going. So it's really important. We've asked the presidents to try to kind of run through their association and look at people who haven't pumped a lot. I don't know if Trevor, you've looked at that, but this would mean basically going out and asking, you know, the data might not be perfect, but it doesn't look like you've pumped for 5 years or 6 years. Would you like to, you know, could you consider pumping this year to get yourself up to date? And that's really, again, recognizing that the data aren't perfect, and if we have a record that you pumped, we're pretty sure you did pump. If we have a record that you didn't pump, maybe you did, and we don't really know. So getting that information back from people would be good. We also are going to have some communications, a lot. You might have seen some things already from Three Lakes Council, and we have some sign, you know, little yard signs and other stuff. We're going to really trying to be making people aware of this, because we hope that it will make a difference on the lakes. And there is some work going on to study putting in a sewer and a sewage treatment plant. I think that we had some preliminary numbers. The costs were pretty challenging when you think that you want to get that through grants, you know, and so forth. I think we're going to keep working on that. But if anything, that convinced me that it's even more important to pay attention to our septics now, because it's going to take a long time to get enough funds for a real sewer plant to come through. Did you want anything else? I mean, there's
no, that was a great, no, that's I think a good overview of what this initiative is about. Is about maintaining the quality of our lakes, ensuring that the folks in our communities are treating this seriously. And this does also really dovetail with the drought conditions that we saw last year too, is that these things are interconnected. And so as the septic is deteriorating and leaching into the soil, drought conditions is going to impact the lake when the water rises again. Like these things, we have an ecosystem, right? So what I would propose, and I was waiting essentially for this meeting to present this to the board, the members, et cetera, is that I would resolve that if we have houses that we have no record of them pumping in the last 5 years, that I will be personally reaching out to those households by phone to contact them, inform them of the initiative, let them know why we're doing this, and then just, you know, again, as Jan's noting, it may not mean they haven't pumped, it just means we don't currently have a record of it. So they very well could come back and say, you know, I had Vogler out here however many years ago or last year. But to remind folks of the importance of this, then that will also be highlighted moving forward on the website. We will have, information about this initiative on the website to remind folks to be pumping ideally every 3 years at the most. And then similarly, that will be going into this year's newsletter to as well inform the populace of the community at large, and just try and raise awareness. So we'll also get an email out, just sort of really launching this to the community. But that first sort of big act is going to be that direct communication to the houses that do not have record of pumping. We do not, as a club, have any rules or regulations pertaining to this. We really don't have any rules or regulations pertaining to the individual treatment or sort of maintenance of anyone's property. That's really, we're not typically that type of housing authority. We don't want to be the people telling you your mailbox should be lilac shade number 53. Like that's not our vibe. But this is more about just encouraging folks to be aware of how this impacts our community, our waters, and just to be proactive about this. Because as Jan notes, when they come, if there's something wrong, believe me, a septic company will tell you what they'd like to charge you for. So they will get that thing fixed up and ready to go for the coming year plus, et cetera. So if there are any other suggestions or recommendations or concerns with what I've proposed thus far, or with anything that either Carlos or Jan had to say, I would love to hear it at this time.
Just as a community, as an observation, I think that the situation is even more dire now, because after the pandemic, lots of the houses that were kind of like vacation houses or kind of like 1 or 2 persons occupied now have more, right? So the use of the septics and the load to the overall ecosystem is higher, right? So as a community, anything that we can do to kind of like help the lake ecosystem to kind of like absorb that extra load of phosphorus will help a lot. So it's more like a goodwill. And when I paddle on the lake or when I swim in the lake with my kids, I always think that it's something so precious that all of us should be kind of like trying to preserve. That's what makes the magic of our community so unique.
Absolutely. Well said, Carlos. Any other comment or questions regarding this? Go ahead, Jan.
Yeah, I was just going to say thank you, Trevor. I mean, I know it's it takes somebody to actually go out and contact people or to write a note, and I thank you for taking that on. I wanted to give a little bit of feedback. The people on Lake Wacabuc Association have been doing that, and the just to encourage you, the feedback has been very positive. They haven't had pushback really from anybody. Most people are surprised that it's, I'm sure I pumped. Oh, you mean, oh, it's been, yes, it has been a while. Okay. So people have been actually very encouraging about this initiative. So, but I do want to thank you for taking it on. I know it means calling a few people, but I appreciate it.
Of course, it's my pleasure. Sheila, did you have something you wanted to add?
Nope. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm good.
No,
Thanks.
all right. Okay, so that will round out that. We'll call that events. That was we were finishing up events there. So Colleen Harris is not with us this evening. She's traveling, but she is the head of the garden committee. I'll suffice to say that she has done some lovely planting. Larry has also done some planting at our entryway this year, both he and Liz Katz. So thank you to them for their efforts in that. And I also just spoke to Colleen the other day about potentially adding some additional, I can't not giggle a little bit when I say the word shrubberies, but that's because I was raised on Monty Python. But some shrubberies down there now that we've had some space cleared out from taking some trees down. She wants to do some extra planting down there. So there are good things happening with the gardening committee to sort of round out our overall beachfront effort. And we thank Colleen for her efforts as well. So with that, we will wrap up the committee reports. At this time, we will turn our attention to unfinished and new business. The only new business that I have to bring at this time would be, I have 2 items. One is the discussion regarding water usage in time of drought. My personal instinct would be to maintain things as they are. And we certainly can hope that we do not encourage similar circumstances to what we endured last summer, where we are asking folks actively to hold back on their water usage. But we were seeing usage in excess of 17,000 gallons used a day during the height of that drought, which is a pretty astronomical number, and understandable given the heat. But again, I think everyone did a really good job of sort of tightening the belt there. And so personally, I would like to just trust that we as a community can continue to do that, to continue to care for each other when the word goes out that things are getting a little drier and hotter than we're used to, as opposed to instituting rules that might then impact folks that are pulling from different sources. But I'm certainly open to comment or question on that matter.
So Trevor, I do have one comment on it, not a question. So again, so Steve reaches out to everyone via email. Would it be appropriate, and up to the community to decide, would it be appropriate for us to give him a forum on our website where he could kind of post the status of the water and sort of say we're in a crisis or we're not in a crisis? What are your thoughts on that?
It's definitely possible. I mean, he and Laura are always monitoring our well levels in real time.
I know, and they're very active with, in the neighborhood. I'm just wondering if maybe we could just give him a place, even if he did it via you, where he could post if there's something going on. So I'm sort of for this community has one place to look, and they go to our website to kind of find anything out that's going on that directly impacts us as a local community.
Yeah, I mean, so to that end, last year during this, if you went to our website, the first thing you would see is a pop-up alert letting you know that we are enduring drought conditions and asking folks not to use. So, to an extent, we're kind of skirting that line.
We're doing it already. Okay.
I mean, not as extreme as what you're proposing in terms of literally posting the gallon totals, but I certainly was doing that via email and in Facebook posts and things, trying to.
And I think that's fine. Maybe that's fine. I want to make sure we're supporting their efforts, because they're
I
sort
think
of
that
like
we
our
have
local
almost like
community.
an informal bulletin board at the entry of our street, right? On that kind of like a post, right?
Yep. And so that was posted there as well. I posted that we had a physical posting that said, hey, we are currently under drought conditions. We're asking folks not to use this, So I did what I could certainly to make that information known. But certainly, and I was talking to Laura and Steve, I was talking to them daily throughout that couple week stretch. So I think that for now, hopefully we don't endure something similar this year. We get a little bit of a reprieve, although I'll say our winter certainly doesn't show a great deal of promise. So we will see, and maybe we're here again next year looking at needing to really figure out how we want to approach this. But for now, I'm inclined to treat it as an aberration. First, I saw Jan, and then Mr. Ferraron.
Yeah. So two things. One, they do have a website, so you could link to their website if you wanted as a just another way to get them going. The second thing is, I do know there's a mix of people who have, as you indicated before, who have wells and people who get water out of the waterworks. And for a long time, what we've said is really you shouldn't be using the well water from the waterworks to water your lawn. And there really was higher usage. So it's hard to believe that wasn't because somebody was either sprinkling, or maybe, filling their swimming pool up, or doing something, that if it evaporated. So I think just sort of be aware that that the wells are somewhat limited, and that we really, any time of year, because there's usually a day or two, this is back from when I was running it, there was a day or two when it got really high, and we just sort of assumed that somebody was putting a really they're filling up their swimming pool in the spring for the rest of the year. So just be aware. Now, and there are also people that have either, they might have sprinklers going because they have pumps in the lake, or they have their own private well. And so you can't, if you see water, somebody sprinkling, you can't necessarily condemn them off the front.
Yeah, exactly. And so that was Jan, that was really the reason why I was considering us as a community agreeing on usage, because even if you do draw from the lake or your own private well, we all share the same aquifers. So the water supply is essentially a stable source for all parties, whether you have your own private source that you can draw from or not. And so to that answer for Jan, talking about those ballooning usages, the Waterworks or Twin Lakes Water Company now, they do have the rule in place that you can water by hand. That is the only means that we are meant to water our gardens, plants, yards, etc. That it is not to be a fixed sprinkler system or a sprinkler placed on your lawn, even the type, that you would have the kids jump through. Jen, that's the first I've heard of actually seeing a number balloon in terms of potentially being a swimming pool fill. Because yeah, I mean, a pool, we're talking even a small pool, we're looking at 500 to 7,500 gallons for one household. So that can really make a dent. Mr. Farron, you had your hand up.
Oh, it has nothing to do with this. It's I'll come in after you're done.
Okay.
This discussion.
Got it. Thank you. Carlos, go for it.
Just as a point of reference, how successful was the voluntary reduction? You said that there was a peak volume of 17,000. How disciplined were we as a community? What percentage was reduced?
So it was terrifying, frankly, because the first email that I sent out, the usage actually went up the next day, and overnight specifically, seemingly like people were out in the middle of the night watering their lawns when they didn't think anyone could see them. But after a second message, we dropped from between 15 and 17,000 gallons a day down to about 9 to 10,000 gallons a day, which is in line with our daily usage for our community.
Okay.
So once basically I kind of threw a bit of a fit, it may have landed home that this was serious enough that folks did take it seriously, and we really did rein things in from that point forward. So that it was very heartening after that initial night of terror.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So again, my inclination at this time would be to again rely on our community to be good neighbors for each other, as we always are in every other facet, that we look out for each other in that way. And unfortunately, if we are here again in a year talking much about the same thing, then maybe we will have to look into further regulation on this. Any further comment, question, concern? Okay, go for it, Mr. Farrow. Oh.
Well, yeah, my question, and it may have to be directed to the Three Lakes more, is who controls the level of the lake as to how much water goes down Wacabuck River? I ask that only because last summer my wife and I had to assist a number of boaters stuck under the road and who just couldn't paddle through anymore in the middle of the drought and just were, and we're stuck in mud and things like that. And I was just wondering if there's ever a way that possibly you keep the level of the lake a little bit higher if rain's going to be limited.
Right. Okay, so so those of you who don't know, we do have what we fondly call an outlet structure rather than a dam, because there are regulations that involve dams at Wacabuck, and it was built in around 1865 by New York City, because this was a source of drinking water. And during the 60s and 70s, 1860s and 70s, there were some huge droughts and New York City was running out of water. So that's the same thing that we have holding it back today. There is a bracket on one side that has a potential for putting a board in, but it hasn't been used for years. So the water level is just what it is. We don't have a way to regulate it. The bracket on the other side is broken. My understanding from years ago is that people would have fights about it. One of the problems is if they tried to raise it even 6 inches, some of the people around Wacabuck, their septics would basically flood. So it's sort of above the, right now, I'm sure it's above the level of the dam, yes, because I go out and look at lake gauges, and so I kind of know what 0 is on the dam. During the droughts, we were well below the dam. So even if there had been something that had been trying to hold it back, just for the whole period of time, it got, you know, it just, there isn't enough water coming in that would have kept it higher. We have pretty low inputs to this lake and the pretty low outflows. So we kind of are dependent on what happens in the watershed right here. We have a lot of swamps around our lakes, wetlands, which are generally pretty good, but they actually sort of soak water out into them, I think, during the summer when it's really dry. So we don't have a way to make the lake higher or lower, and we wouldn't have been able to keep it higher in order to keep it from going as shallow as it did.
Yeah.
I do know, so what one time I did, there is sometimes some silt that builds up in the Rippewam, in the channel there to Rippewam, between Rippewam and Oskalita. And at one point I went in with some buckets and rakes and stuff and tried to pull some of it out of the middle of the channel of the culvert into the edges where it was deeper holes, to try to make that passage a little bit better. But it's in the summer, in the drought, it's the African Queen kind of thing where Lou will haul the boat through the channel. I'll get out and walk. I mean, that's where we are now.
I'm going to work on that this spring. We've already done some work. We lost a couple of trees across it over the winter, so, but we'll clean that up. I've got a call into the town, also into the town highway department, because I am concerned about the culvert, the big rocks at the top. They really have nothing to do with the culvert. They were put there probably 50 years ago, but they're dangerously leaning, and I'm concerned that one day we could have an accident. So I think that's a town highway department thing.
Yeah, that is. And in case people noticed last year, the condition of the culvert under Oskalita, under Oskalita Road, going between Oskalita and Wacabuck, there's some big holes in there. And Paul Lewis called the town engineer out. They looked at it, and they do feel that it's important to see if we can get a replacement for that. Just sort of reporting on some of this. I wrote a grant together with the town engineer. We submitted it on, I think, January 13th of this year. We were supposed to hear an answer. We have not heard whether we've gotten the grant or not to get that replaced, but that, you know, people are aware of that issue as well, and we're trying to work on it to get the funds to get that replaced.
Okay.
Thank you, Jan.
Yeah. And we also had 2 nights in a row, the beavers visiting, and they did some damage. So we wrapped up some of the trees and put fences around them, the bushes and trees. They came in off the water quite a ways, but I just wrapped them up. So just beware if you're on the lake that they're around.
Yeah, I also heard some people from Wacabuck where some were taken down. So they are, I think the easy pickings are going and they might be wandering a little further afield. So if you have trees you really want to protect, hardwood cloth or fencing, I think there might be something on the Three Lakes Council website that talks about how to protect that. That's threelakescouncil.org.
Okay.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you both for those updates and warnings, certainly, as far as beavers are concerned. Very good to know. So then, the only other item that I have for new business to discuss was a proposal that was made at an informal gathering of the board last year, where we discussed the potentiality of adding merchandising, essentially, to Lake Club, maybe T-shirts, light items like that, as well as potentially incorporating local craftspeople in our community. We have folks that make their own jewelry, things of that nature, that we could sell both for ourselves and for those members. In looking into this, what I will say is that it becomes very complicated because the club itself is not a 501(c)(3). We are not a nonprofit. And so the tax implications for Larry could become somewhat onerous in terms of folding in a profit side of our business in terms of a sales division. And what I think, after thinking about it, what I would propose is that instead of having sort of a regular featured merchandise aspect that we could have on our website, would be to have maybe a yearly release of a t-shirt, either t-shirt, tank top, long sleeve, have a pre-order and allow for folks to essentially sort of pre-order, sign up for it. We could even create a community sort of event around it where members of the community could submit the proposed logo for the year's shirt, sort of a la a class shirt as you would have had maybe in high school or college, or if you ever attended summer camp, each year you have a new shirt that denotes the year, the club, etc., and make it more of a sort of homegrown small batch ordering system where we could generate something like that. Because another aspect of it that the board found themselves sort of tangling with was creating a staid logo, an agreed upon and and final logo, where this doing it annually would allow for that to not be a concern. It could be creative every year. The kids in the community could submit their ideas as well as adults, obviously, and we could have it voted on the website, have the different submissions up there, and have that be a fun little contest. And then do a pre-order. So we're ordering a set figure. We know exactly what we're spending and we know exactly what our profit margin will be, as opposed to having an ongoing concern that involves then shipping, taxes, and all of that. Basically, once I started having to figure out our tax ID number for PayPal for the website, I put the brakes on and we sort of took a step back. So I'm interested to hear feedback on that. If anyone has any thoughts on that. I have spoken with Kathy Mallory, just so you know. So she's aware of sort of where I'm leaning on this. And so one of our residents does create her own jewelry. For her, we would, sponsor a trunk show, essentially, that we could pair a trunk show for her products along with a fire and ice or another community event. And just do some more to amplify our local artisans as well, but not integrate a profit sharing, sort of side of things, because again, that can become very, very sort of tricky with taxes. But I certainly am open to thoughts and comments on that.
Good idea.
Mallory, do you have anything that you would add on that matter, or questions or concerns? No? Okay.
No.
Okay. Well, we are long in the tooth as far as the evening goes, but that was the last bit of business that I had to address. I open the floor to any of our directors, any of our officers, any of our remaining members who are here this evening. Is there any other topic, issue, item that you would wish to discuss at this time?
So Trevor, just on the community concept and the fact that we have a local artisan,
Mhm.
maybe I don't like the concept of us promoting a single individual in the community for something. Nothing against if that individual's on the
Yeah,
phone.
yeah, yeah.
Would we be doing that as like a bulletin board where they could post like, I have this kind of stuff for sale? Like, is that more of a bulletin board type posting so that someone else who, maybe rakes lawns could post on the bulletin board, say, I'm available to help rake your lawn in the fall. So is it something that we should handle more as a bulletin board rather than considering kind of sponsoring an individual artist of some type?
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying, and I think that absolutely is something that we could look into adding at the beachfront. Would be something of that nature.
Or an online bulletin board. I don't know that
and
we
certainly,
need a paper one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So just, if you have it, and then you could just propose, here's my bulletin board ad, and it stays up for 2 weeks or whatever.
Mhm.
And they could propose something and you could, determine, is this appropriate? Do we post it or not? So I just like, because there's people who might just want to rake leaves as opposed to do something that feels like an artist kind of thing. But maybe I need to make, a couple extra bucks and I want to rake anyone in the neighborhood's leaves. It just
Yeah.
feels like a bulletin board thing versus a sort of representing a specific artist, but let that artist be part of a community approach.
Well,
And maybe that would be fair and give everyone an opportunity, even if they don't feel like what they have is art, but what they have is just, hey, I'm a laborer.
Right.
well, Sheila, just so that you know, I don't know if Trevor mentioned it before, but the whole conversation with this person started because they were going to donate the part of the proceeds back to the Two Lakes Club. Like it started as fundraising,
Yeah.
not just in particular to promote this person.
No, and that's fine. And people can choose to donate to, like I donate every year, right? I overpay my dues every year and I donate to the Two Lakes Club. But I wouldn't expect anything back from that. So I just think regardless of whether they're donating or not, that's a personal choice you make. It's not a tax deductible donation. It seems
Yeah.
very focused on a single individual's contribution as opposed to, hey, you guys, there's a bulletin board. If you're 15-year-old wants to rake leaves in the fall, like that's not somebody who's going to think about donating, but they might want to say, I'm available to produce this service, and it's raking leaves or it's making jewelry or it's whatever it happens to be. And if people choose to donate, that's a totally different conversation, right?
Well, I think in this case,
Kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah, and I hear you. I think in this case, certainly, I think the bulletin board's a great idea. Obviously, we're going to have it seems like an increasing number of children. So, a place for people to advertise that they might be interested in babysitting,
right,
things like that. 100%. I think that's a great resource that we can fold into the website. Perhaps then instead of highlighting an individual, we could do sort of a craft fair. I'm thinking of this specific individual because, as Mallory said, this started from a position of trying to fundraise, frankly, as a means to avoiding having to raise,
Right.
association dues. So like that was where this whole thing began. And this is sort of where it has found itself. But if, we have plenty of artisans in our neighborhood. So there are plenty of folks. So maybe it's just pairing a sort of a craft fair with a fire and ice where anyone who has anything that they're interested in showing off or anything can come and do that, as opposed to specifically highlighting one individual. I think your community focused approach is spot on there. So I agree with that. Anything else that anyone wants to add on this topic or any other?
Yeah.
Yes.
20 years on Lake Rippewam. I saw my first loon on the lake.
Ooh.
I've never seen him on Lake Rip before, so I was excited to see that.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, that's really exciting. Loons are always a good sign. Always a good sign.
It was great. And the bald eagles have been around a lot, and the osprey's been diving in. They've been a great bird show. Great bird shows.
Fantastic. Well, if there are no other items that anyone wishes to discuss this evening, I will pause dramatically.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
Oh, thank you, Jan. She didn't even have to be prompted. Can I get a second?
Second,
Second.
thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. With that, I close this meeting of the Too Late Club. Thank you all for your attendance, your time, and your thoughts and your energies. Let's have a fantastic year. All right. Have a great night. I'll be hanging on here if anyone has anything they want to chat about, but I am officially ending the recording.